Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Rush Weekend. My name is Ash King and I am a provisional psychologist, a psychology researcher, and I'm also the content manager of the Indigo Project. The Indigo Project are a psychology practice. We're based in Sydney and we like to think creatively about mental health. This morning we are so thrilled to be joining Rush and all of you guys to chat all things mental health, psychology, and really anything that's just on your mind. We'll be holding a live Q&A about managing change, the global crisis, and isolation. Anything else that you might be struggling with at the moment. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Indigo Psychologist, the lovely Rashida. Hey Rashida, how you going?
Hello, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm going good. We're both very excited and grateful for everyone who sent through some questions over the week, which we will be getting to. Once again, for you guys who have just joined, Rashida is a psychologist from the Indigo Project, and you're open to ask her all of your burning questions about mental health, psychology, managing change, anxiety, stress, anything that's on your mind. Before we get into all the juicy stuff, we would firstly love to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So, Rashida, tell me, where's your head at this morning?
Where's my head at? It's in a good place. I'm super excited to be here. I think this is such a cool thing that Rush is doing. So I'm very excited. I'm in a good place.
Awesome. Sounds good. So everybody who's live with us now, feel free to submit a question and we'll be checking them out as we go. We're going to be with you for the next 30 minutes. So feel free to have think about something that's, maybe been on your mind lately, or some feelings or some thoughts that you've been going through that you're like, wow, I would love to talk to a psychologist about that. We did have some questions submitted earlier in the week, and so we'd love to have a little chat to those, maybe kick off with something like that. So one of the really great questions that we got was a morning and an evening routine that might help out when managing anxiety. What do you reckon, Rashida? Do you have any go-tos?
Yeah, I love this idea of creating a morning and evening routine. I think it's so important. I think it's really beneficial in sort of managing that anxiety throughout the day. In terms of morning routine, I think this is really important because we know that our cortisol levels, which is one of the stress hormones and chemicals that runs through our bloodstream, is actually produced we've got the highest amounts of cortisol in the morning, about half an hour after waking. So knowing that, when we wake up, there's probably that tendency to maybe be a little bit anxious already, or that's going to be a little bit heightened. So I think it's really important that when we're waking, we're doing it, we've got a plan in place to kind of get ourselves into the day gently, not really rushing through each thing that we need to do. When we wake up, I think if we can, to set maybe 5 minutes aside to do some breath work and to really ground our nervous system, get, the part of the nervous system that controls our rest and digest and helps us feel very grounded and calm, activated. And so that can be done by, just doing some breath work, which is making sure that your breath out is longer than the breath in. And that's going to be sort of activating this part of the nervous system that helps ground us and make us feel calm. I also think that listening to your favorite song, if you have a song that really gets you, in a mood, gets you positive, gets you ready, blast it and, get ready to it. It doesn't have to be the same song every day, but I think that this is such a nice way to just get yourself in a headspace where you're excited, you're ready for the day. Music, it has so much impact on our mental health. So if we can find a couple of songs, find a playlist that we really love and whack that on in the morning. I also think that making your bed is really important. Research shows us that when you make your bed and you set aside the moment to do that, first of all, you're being very mindful, you're sort of focusing in on something, on an activity, but you're also helping yourself stay really organized for the rest of the day as well. So that's something so simple, but a lot of people, just leave their bed and rush out the door. And I think also just being really conscious of the transition time between each task. So sometimes in the morning, we don't often allow ourselves enough time to actually do each thing. And so we end up rushing through and then rushing out the door. And then we're sort of in a rush, and that feeling of, urgency can stay with us for the rest of the day. So they're just some small things, if you can do some breath work, some grounding as soon as you wake up to sort of lower that cortisol level that's already going to be very high. That can be a first thing. Making your bed, and that can be the second thing. And then blasting some really good music, and getting yourself in the mood for the day, whatever your mood's going to be. Setting an intention as well for the rest of your day. So, setting the intention of what you hope to bring to yourself for the rest of that day can be really nice. Night routine, bedtime routine. I think this is also, really important, because we know that it takes a lot these days to unwind and to kind of wind down and to get ourselves into a place where we're actually going to have some really restful sleep. We are often, rushing home. We're getting dinner ready. We're kind of catching up on stuff in the day. We're on our social media, and we're sometimes so zonked that we just end up, laying on the lounge and not moving until it's time to go to sleep. We hear so often how important it is to actually try and stop using our devices, even if it's just half an hour before we go to bed. And one of the reasons for this is that when we're on our device and we are watching, consuming, taking things in, we're actually almost, telling our brain to turn on and to start actually, consuming and fixing and thinking and planning at a time when we're actually needing to slow that down and get ourselves in a space where we're not on and we're not, consuming and taking things in. So if we can kind of keep at least half an hour between when we're on a device and when we're going to sleep, that would be helpful. Again, any sort of breath work and grounding to get ourselves and our body and our nervous system in a place where we're in a little bit of calm. I think having a shower at night, even in the morning as well, using that as part of a transition ritual, I guess, from being out or being at work and being back at home and being in a place where, you're calm. And also, there was something else I was thinking of in the night routine. So doing some grounding. Oh, temperature. I think temperature is really important in our room. If our body is feeling too cold or too hot, we're going to find it very hard to get ourselves in a position where we're relaxed enough to actually fall into a sleep. So I think, ensuring that the temperature in your room or wherever you're sleeping is balanced, and also the clothes that you're wearing to go to sleep, making sure that you're not wearing too many layers, or you're not wearing, or you've got enough blankets, that sort of thing, because you can wake up really hot, you can sometimes get really cold, and that's going to really interrupt that really good sleep and that restful sleep and spike that anxiety. Someone said, any tips for reducing screen time? I find it so tricky to not look at my phone before bed. I think if you can, leave your phone outside of the room. So try and, use your phone outside of the room. And then when you know that you're going into the room, leave it somewhere outside charging. I know that can be hard because you'll need it for the alarm. So even if it's just not near your bed, so that, if you've kept it on the other side of the room, if you've kept the charger on the other side of the room, you're going to find it, and then you're already comfortable in bed, it's going to be less enticing to get up and go and get it.
Sometimes I think even for people who are like me and can't be out of sight of their phones, I'll put mine on do not disturb, or you can
Yeah.
set it up to do not disturb from a certain point. So I'm like, look, I don't want to talk to anyone after 7 p.m. So you set it up every day, so you won't get buzzes or notifications, and then you can leave it face down so that it's not shining every time something happens.
Exactly. Even airplane mode, if you put it on do not disturb or airplane mode, sometimes you forget that it's even on that. And so even just that, yeah, like you said, like the message, the screen lighting up, knowing that you've got a message or an email come through, that's not happening. And then you allow yourself to actually separate away from the phone. And yeah, I think that's really important. Another thing I forgot for the morning routine is trying not to, well, first of all, trying not to have the phone be the first thing that you grab for and that you're looking at when you wake up, because that's also, really just setting yourself to start consuming messages, emails. Definitely with work emails, trying not to look at work emails or anything work related until you've actually got through some of the other steps of getting prepared for your day. Because otherwise you are already in work mode, your headspace is at work, who knows what kind of emails are coming through, and you can really send yourself into a heightened state before you've even reached work. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, I think someone asked a little earlier as well about, with the breath work that you were talking about, are there any apps on your phones that you can use to kind of help facilitate it? And there's heaps of really handy apps now. You can jump on Spotify and Google meditations. You can jump on YouTube and get a bunch of free stuff. On Insight Timer, there's a lot of free guided meditations that guide you through some breath work. It only has to be 5 minutes or so. Otherwise, if you're looking to learn some more techniques to do with meditation, there's apps like Headspace, which are awesome and calm. And Indigo, the Indigo Project actually have an online course that guides you through a lot of different types of meditations as well, which is really awesome because, meditations aren't all created equal. There are a few different types. Your different vibes, and there's, just sort of regular breath work where you're able to sort of be guided through the inhales and exhales to sort of center and ground you. There's, loving kindness meditations where you're sending out good vibes to people and the world and back to yourself. So there's a lot of good stuff. Someone's just asked, is the course free? It's actually usually $200, but after all this craziness happening on planet Earth, we've actually reduced it down to $50. So it's very good price, and there's lots of good juicy stuff and heaps of great tips and info on there too. Yeah. So you can go check it out.
Yeah, one of my favorite meditations or guided practices, which I think is also really great for the night routine if you struggle to kind of wind down and get into sleep, is a progressive muscle relaxation. And you can find that guided online. And that's basically where you go from head to toe, each of the muscle groups, you're sort of focusing in on them, you're tightening them a little bit and then letting them go and letting them relax. And this is really, allowing you to kind of do embodiment work. So get back into your body, physiologically sort of ground yourself, get your nervous system, get that part of your nervous system that's rest and digest activated. So you sometimes before you're even finished your whole body of going through, you'll be sleeping. And I think, so guided, progressive muscle.
Yeah, we've got one of those as part of the course too. So it's nice as well. Sometimes you can find some super daggy meditations online that have, like hokey pan flutes and some like weird ass electro shit going on in the background. So all of our meditations with the course have been custom composed by electronic producer Fondup. So he's done an absolute legendary job with all that. So you can kind of still feel a bit cool while you're getting your meditation on. Someone had a question just earlier, which I think is really great and in line with what we've been chatting about, is how can we shift from work mode when we're working from home? Obviously, it's, once you finish work at an office and you come home to your house, it's kind of a natural shift, right? But at the moment, a lot of us are still stuck at home working.
100%. This has been hard to sort of create. And also, you know, not everyone is in a space where you have a whole separate room to be doing your work. So for some people, you know, you're doing your work maybe from your bedroom, from your lounge room. So it's really blurring those spaces and blurring that personal with the work. If you are using sort of a device or like a computer that you can't really put away and, you know, literally take into another room, I suggest to cover it, and cover it with, you know, a sheet, a cover, something, and also put something on the cover that's going to make it a little bit hard to take off all the stuff. So put a little bit of effort in actually covering it up for the day, if it's not a laptop or something, so that if you are later into the night enticed by saying, oh, you know, I'm just going to go and check my email and I'm just going to go and do a little bit more work, the effort it's going to take all that cover and stuff off is actually going to maybe deter you a little bit. So really try and cover it. If obviously you're working off a laptop or something that can actually be removed, shut it down, put it in another room that you're not going to actually be seeing, out of sight, out of mind, and really try and use that as a way of separating the spaces. Obviously, if you are in a position that you have a room to work from and use as a workspace, closing the door to that space at the end of your work day. Really important to try and keep to an actual schedule in when you're starting work and when you're finishing work, having your lunch breaks. We know, you know, research shows us that when we work from home, we have a tendency to work so much longer hours than we would if we were actually in the office. And you know, working from home before this lockdown, where it became, you know, our sort of norm, was often seen as like a sort of like a bonus. Like, you know, if you were working really well, then maybe you get an opportunity to work from home a couple of days here and there, or, you know, it was something that, you know, was seen as a privilege almost. So I think now that we're actually working from home, we're still sometimes in that mindset that I'm really lucky to be working from home, so I need to prove myself while I'm working from home and do even more work. But then you just end up working, you know, non-stop. You're working so many more hours than you would at the office. And we forget that when we're in the office, we're not strapped to the desk, you know, working 12 hours straight, where, you know, colleagues are coming past, you're going to get coffee, you're going to have little breaks, you're going to have a chat and a banter over there. So remembering that when you're at home, you know, some people really stress about even going to the bathroom, you know, oh, I can't like log out, I can't go and have a glass of water, I can't step up away from my desk. You can and you should, and I think it's really important in order to actually be able to keep working for that whole day. I know I went on a bit of a tangent. I know the question was about the transition, but working from home, yeah, it is a bit of a struggle.
There was a good tweet about it actually recently, which is like, we need to stop saying that we're working from home and now we're living at work.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's been tough. Thanks everyone for joining us. And if you've just tuned in, Rashida and myself are both from the Indigo Project. We're a psychology practice based in Sydney. And we are both very big therapy fans. Absolutely believe in the power of therapy to connect with yourself, to heal, to grow, and just to learn more about yourself and what makes you tick. So someone has submitted a really awesome question for us today too, which is how to recover, or I guess take care of yourself when the thought of therapy or going to therapy is overwhelming and you feel like you're hitting rock bottom. What do you reckon, Rashida?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of therapy is daunting, you know, for a lot of people, especially if you haven't, you know, if you've never done it before and you're thinking about going and starting it for the first time. It's also, you know, sometimes there's a few steps in actually getting to the therapy space. So that sometimes can take a little bit. It is, you know, it's daunting. I think that, you know, it's obviously a space where you're going to talk about things and that you're not talking about every day. It's a vulnerable position to be in, to share these sort of things with someone. And so all of that stuff can really make you hesitate and feel very anxious. Um, we know that, you know, therapy, I read somewhere the other day that they're saying that almost up to 3 to 6 months of therapy before sometimes we can start to really feel that, you know, we're noticing change or we are, you know, feeling better. And so I think having that in mind, that it is a process, it is a journey. Sometimes it's going to take a few different therapists to even find the one that's going to be right for you. But once you really land on someone that you feel connected with, that you feel comfortable with, and you start, you know, working through the stuff, it is just such a rewarding journey to be on. It's a process. It's, you know, long term. It can be long term. It can also be short term. You know, sometimes you might only need a few sessions. And sometimes people have the fear that maybe, yeah, I'm going to start therapy and I'm going to need to be in it for the rest of my life. But that's something you kind of figure out once you're actually on the journey of doing therapy. But yeah, I mean, I can understand that it is a daunting place to be, but I think once you actually start to really, you know, reap in those benefits from it, then you realize, you know, how important it is and how great it can really be.
And I think now, you know, we kind of don't really scoff at spending, you know, a bunch of money per week for a like a nice Pilates membership and to keep our bodies fit and healthy. But essentially, the thing that we've got ticking away inside our bodies every single minute of the day is our brains, and it affects everything that we do. It affects all our relationships. It affects our work and our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Rashida, like what sort of real positive changes have you seen in the clients that you work with who have been coming to therapy regularly?
Oh, you know, amazing. I honestly feel that, you know, working with my clients is my biggest privilege, because to witness someone go through a journey of change, just, you know, falling back in love with themselves, you know, as cheesy as that might sound, you know, it's such a beautiful thing to watch. And these people, some of my long-term clients have been people that have been extremely, you know, fearful of starting the therapy journey. It was their first time, you know, starting therapy. And, you know, they've sort of reported back to me how, you know, grateful they are that they took that step into doing it. It's the best thing they've ever done. I know that with a lot of things, especially in this area, the anticipation of it is often a lot higher, like a lot worse than what it's actually going to be like when you're in that room and when you've started that process of therapy. But yeah, just witnessing people kind of understand themselves a lot better, be able to join these dots. I practice in a way where I do often go back and, you know, talk about childhood, talk about all these formative experiences and how they may be shaping you now. And I think for a lot of people, that's just, it's freeing almost, you know, to understand that, okay, this is maybe why this is happening, join these dots together. And just, yeah, finding, you know, a new, I guess, like a new way of witnessing and being and living and perceiving things. And I think that that's really exciting as well.
Yeah, for sure. I have to say that, you know, when I went to therapy for the first time, I definitely was like, this is not for me. You know, therapy is when people have real problems, and I don't want to take, you know, real space away from people who are, you know, actually dealing with stuff, because we have a tendency to minimize sometimes what we're going through, particularly if it's mental health stuff. Like we kind of just don't even like to confront it. But I think the first time that I stepped into that therapy room, you know, I bit the bullet. I went and got my mental health care plan, and I saw a therapist, and it was a game changer. After a couple of sessions, I was like, wow, I know that this is really going to help support me and help me heal and change for the better. So I'm really glad that I did, and I'm really glad that there are amazing, beautiful therapists like you that exist, Rashida, to help people through. We're going to be finishing up very soon, so I thought that we would finish on a question which I think has been like on a lot of people's minds lately, is this idea of holding space. So we chat about it a lot to do with therapy, in terms of like when you come into the therapy room, you have a therapist who holds space for you. But we had a question, which was, how do you hold space for yourself? Which is challenging and a little bit different and often really important. What do you reckon, Rashida?
We hear this word boundaries so much. I really do think, though, that it's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself is to first understand, and be aware of what your personal boundaries may look like, because they're going to differ from what the next person's are. So, really being very specific about what your personal boundaries look like, understanding that. You can do that with a therapist, you can do that, in your own self-work. And then understanding, what your limits are in terms of in every area of your life. Where is that line that you feel like is enough when it comes to socializing, work, personal relationships, family life, and then really practicing gradually not crossing over that line, because I think that's where we really become unstuck, is when we sort of cross over our own boundary and we might not even be aware of what that is. Understanding if we sort of are an introvert, more of an introvert or an extrovert, and if we're gaining energy from other people or if we're actually getting drained by other people. And so understanding that, because that's going to play a big part then in what you choose to do on your weekends throughout the week. And that's how you really hold space for yourself, because if you are overcommitting yourself and, running on this, wheel, and just this never ending wheel, you're going to end up not having much space left for yourself. So I think that is really, really important. I think it's more about, we want to create a life, there's that saying that we want to create a life that we don't have to escape from, or something like this. So I think it's more about, creating these pockets of space within your week that you allow yourself to hold space for yourself, rather than, waiting till the weekend where you have this 2 days and then that's the time where you're going to practice self-care. Doing it, consistently and through maintenance, and really small things that you include in each of your days to hold space for yourself, even if it's just like five minutes a day, that you find something that allows you to really just hold that space for yourself. That's where, you're going to notice the long-term benefits of what holding space for yourself looks like.
Yeah, 100%. I think that sometimes people feel intimidated by the idea of it. And it's like, oh, I better block out 5 hours on Saturday to do some space holding for myself. But as with a lot of really positive changes and developing healthy habits, it all comes down to those little tiny changes that you can try to adopt regularly. And you don't need to adopt all the changes at once. Sometimes all the good stuff happens when you're like, okay, I'm going to, maybe just do 2 minutes worth of stretching in the morning, or this week I'm going to, set an intention to be mindful of my boundaries and not overcommit to social or work stuff. So just like a little something that you can kind of carry with you throughout the week and keep reminding yourself of, even as part of a healthy morning routine, as we have discussed.
Exactly. I heard something the other day that, if we take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves. And I think it was, it really resonated with me, because it is, the only thing to be focusing on is the minutes in our day, not, to really overcomplicate it and overwhelm ourselves with, what am I going to practice, for the next months and years. We need to just take care of the minutes in our day, in our life, and then the years are going to take care of themselves. And in those minutes, it's like 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. If we've introduced that, everything else is going to flow, hopefully.
Absolutely. There's another fun quote that I read this week too, which is like, isn't it funny how it seems like the days are all the same, and yet you look a few years into the future and everything is different. And so I think that just reminds us of the power of our everyday. And just like you said, the little things, they really do add up. So we can't, continue to push them aside or push ourselves aside, as we so often do for other people, for our work, for these huge goals that we might have that, like who knows, you get to the finish line and it's not gonna, it might be gratifying for like a hot minute and then you're like on to the next thing. So, you know, we live so much for the future and we rarely understand how much power there is in the
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
I think that that's going to bring us to the end of our session this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Rashida.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much for Rush for having the both of us. Rashida and myself, Ash, are part of the Indigo Project. We're a psychology practice based in Surrey Hills, but we do Zoom sessions all over the country and all over the world. So if you want to hit up an awesome Indigo therapist just like Rashida, you can get in touch with us via our website, and make sure you chuck us a follow on Instagram too for lots of inspiring and mental health inspiring content on there too. I am allowed to say that because I run the Instagram. So thank you so much, guys. And you can catch this chat as well as lots of other good ones in the Rush IGTV too. Thanks, everybody, and have a fantastic weekend.